Welcome to Lesson 4, the ideal core team. I'm your instructor, Matthew Midka, one of the co-founders of Greater Than Learning. What we're going to cover in this lesson is the transition from an interim team to an ideal dedicated team that leads the operational data ethics framework. We'll look at the composition of this team and the archetypal functional roles that would make it up, and how to approach the conversations that you'll inevitably have with your peers within your organization so you can build momentum on this important area. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to understand the various cross-functional roles that are relevant to an operational data ethics framework, be able to outline an ideal cross-functional team for the early stages of a framework's implementation, and have the confidence that you can reach out to your peers and colleagues in your work context and discuss how they could contribute to implementing an operational framework. In Lesson 3, we covered this operational approach. We looked at the 5 key functional areas of an operational framework and explored this framework visual using a scenario. Let's just quickly set some expectations here before we move on. You won't just have a team ready to roll and an operational data ethics framework implemented with a click of a button. I'm sure you know that. That would really be nice, but it's not the reality here. So how do we transition from where we are now to where we want to be? You want to be factoring in an evolution from an interim team to a dedicated core team. Then, ultimately, to self-organizing teams, bringing ethical decision-making into their everyday ways of working. You may now have some people working specifically on data ethics already. But for the purposes of this example, your interim team at first might just be you, the first node in the network, if you will. Your conversations on operational approaches continue and the network grows. More people in the organization become supportive of this approach. The authorizing environment is there. The support to implement an operational framework has built in momentum. You might be thinking now, an interim team is a long way off for me and my organization that I work for. This is a big organization thing. Well, that might be true in part. A lot of this is designed to work effectively within large and complex organizations. But much of what you're learning here can be broken down and made accessible in a way that works for you and your unique organizational context. Remember, regardless of how big or how small we are, at the beginning, starting tiny is where it's at. So this interim team, which right now could literally just be you, is responsible for facilitating the conversations amongst your peers and guiding the initial implementation and development of a minimal viable framework. Keeping in mind that this will work differently across different organizations. But regardless of how big or small your organization is today, you'd be looking to coordinate infrastructure rollout, guide new policy and governance models, orchestrate pilots for stress testing the framework, integrating with any change programs that are relevant, and iterating on the framework before it is rolled out to other areas of the organization. A new cross-functional team will then be needed to own this rollout across the organization. Recruitment for this team might be done internally, or you might bring people from external to the organization. But what they're doing is taking on the roles of the core interim team now and ensuring that the framework evolves to the changing needs of the organization. So what other functional archetypal roles in this ideal core team? So first, we have the team lead. They are responsible for the strategic direction of the core team's activities, specifically the goals, incentive structures, and metrics. They're also largely responsible for strategic communications, which might mean education and direct collaboration with other executives, and even face-to-face time with the board of directors. Next, the designer. This person is largely responsible for ensuring that the whole approach to data ethics is humanized. This might mean bringing in actionable insights from across the social sciences, ensuring cognitive biases are understood and designed for, and importantly, not exploited as is all too common today. They are also very likely responsible for the core team's approach to social preferability experiments. The technologist. This person is directly responsible for ensuring that the organization's current technology stack and the constraints of that are well understood by the core team and in the context of the core team's activities. In addition, they're also largely responsible for bringing emerging technology foresight into the team's ongoing consideration set, like technologies used to enhance privacy and personal data sovereignty, or things like federated learning and use of synthetic data. This helps better support the team's understanding of the ethical risks and opportunities that arise. Next, the program coordinator. This person arguably has the most complex function in that they connect the dots from across the business, such as understanding the implications of existing change programs, the cultural nuances and diverse ways of working across different departments, and any planning related to ongoing product development. This is the person that has to effectively coordinate the complexity as the framework is progressively operationalized across the entire organization. Next up, the analyst. They're going to be responsible for critically and consistently reviewing core team activities in an attempt to clarify their effectiveness. For example, in the context of the data ethics issues backlog, this person will review backlog items, their categories, and who and where they came from within the organization, whether or not any patterns have emerged, and how to raise the priority of issues that have been getting raised more frequently, but have been missed due to misalignment to the core team's goals, incentives, or metrics. Essentially, this person ensures insights are effectively surfaced, considered, and acted upon by the core team. Next, we call this the legal savant. This person is the key source of legal intelligence, specifically as it relates to global privacy, data protection, automated decision-making, and digital rights in general. They help use the law and the ways it's evolving to enable the most socially preferable data practices actually get implemented. The reality here is that you're going to need to build momentum. Thinking big and starting tiny. At first, this is going to be about conversations you start with your peers at work. That might be people in senior management or team members in specific functional roles. This is about helping people to understand the strategic importance of translating principles and intent into practical action. But how do we do this effectively? That's a bloody good question. We get asked this all the time. What are the hooks? By that, people mean, how can I get others as excited and bought in as I am? Well, from what we've learned, you got to start with them. Who are they? What do they value and care about? What's their context, as in the goals, pains, incentives, metrics that influence how they work on a daily basis? By speaking their language, by being compassionate and empathetic about their context, we're led to believe that you have the greatest chance of getting on a similar page enough that you can grow and do great work together.